When we think of Africa, sadly, one dominant narrative often emerges: poverty, corruption, and underdevelopment. But there is one country that flips this narrative on its head: Botswana. Unlike its neighbors and much of the continent, Botswana is an economic and governance success story. It's one of the wealthiest nations in Africa by GDP per capita, has some of the lowest corruption rates, and is politically stable. But how? Today, we'll explore the remarkable factors behind Botswana's success. We'll look at its strong leadership, the effective use of diamond wealth, and how cultural traditions shaped its governance. Plus, we'll examine its approach to economic diversification and what lessons the rest of Africa and I think the whole world can learn from Botswana. So let's dive in. When Botswana gained independence from Britain in 1966, it faced what seemed like insurmountable odds. At that time, it was one of the poorest countries on earth, with a GDP per capita of just $70 annually. Agriculture, mostly subsistence farming, dominated the economy, and recurrent droughts constantly put people on the brink of starvation. The country lacked roads, schools, and hospitals. In fact, there were just 22 college graduates in the entire nation at the time of independence. Think about that, a country stepping into self governance with almost no infrastructure or human capital. To make matters worse, Botswana is landlocked, which limits its access to international trade. It's surrounded by neighbors like apartheid era South Africa and Zimbabwe, nations that at various times faced political and economic upheaval. This geographical isolation seemed like another nail in the coffin for Botswana's chances at development. Yet, instead of being paralyzed by these challenges, Botswana's leaders saw independence as a clean slate. They recognized the opportunity to build institutions from the ground up to create a vision of governance and development that avoided the pitfalls seen elsewhere in post colonial Africa. The foundation for their success was laid with careful planning and commitment to integrity. With such a bleak starting point, the question arises: how did Botswana turn things around? The answer begins with leadership, visionary, disciplined leadership that laid the groundwork for the country's transformation. Good leadership is rare, and visionary leadership is even rarer. But Botswana had Seretse Khama, its first president. Khama, a man of remarkable intellect and integrity, played a pivotal role in shaping Botswana's future. He believed that the strength of a nation lies in its institutions, not in the whims of individual leaders. This belief guided his approach to governance and nation building. Khama avoided the common post-independence trend of consolidating power in the hands of a single party or individual. Instead, he focused on creating transparent and accountable systems. For example, his administration introduced strict anti-corruption laws early on, and public officials were required to declare their assets. Khama's inclusive approach also incorporated traditional systems like the Kagotla, a form of participatory democracy where citizens could openly voice their concerns and opinions. This allowed people at all levels of society to feel invested in the country's governance. Another striking aspect of Khama's leadership was his willingness to prioritize long-term gains over short-term populism. While many leaders across Africa pursued policies that looked good on paper but were unsustainable, Khama's focus was on education, healthcare, and infrastructure. His leadership style set the tone for Botswana's political culture, which remains largely free of the corruption and instability that plagued many of its neighbors. Strong leadership set the tone, but it wasn't enough on its own. Botswana needed resources to fund its ambitions, and as fate would have it, the ground beneath the nation had a treasure trove that could change its future: diamonds. In 1967, geologists struck gold. Well, not gold, but diamonds, in Botswana's Orapa region. This discovery came just a year after independence, and it could have easily turned into a nightmare. Many African nations rich in natural resources have fallen victim to the resource curse. Nigeria, for instance, earns billions from oil but struggles with widespread poverty and corruption. The Democratic Republic of Congo is another example where vast mineral wealth fuels conflict instead of development. Botswana avoided this curse by taking bold steps. The government took control of the diamond mines through a partnership with De Beers, creating Botswana, a unique public-private venture. The revenues generated weren't squandered or siphoned off by corrupt officials. Instead, they were invested in critical areas like education, infrastructure, and healthcare. Botswana's leadership treated diamonds not as a windfall but as a tool to uplift the nation. One of the most impressive outcomes of this strategy is the Sovereign Wealth Fund Botswana created. The fund ensures that diamond revenues are saved for future generations, a stark contrast to nations that deplete their resources without thinking ahead. This disciplined approach has allowed Botswana to build financial reserves, ensuring stability even during downturns in global diamond prices. While diamonds have been the backbone of Botswana's economy, its leaders knew they couldn't rely on them forever. So they took steps to diversify the economy. Tourism emerged as a significant sector, leveraging Botswana's stunning landscapes and unique wildlife. The Okavango Delta, one of the 7 natural wonders of Africa, attracts thousands of eco-tourists annually. What's interesting is Botswana's high-value, low-impact tourism model. Unlike countries that opt for mass tourism, Botswana focuses on fewer tourists who spend more. This approach not only preserves the environment but also ensures that tourism revenues are reinvested into the community. Agriculture, though small, has also seen strategic investments. Programs to support smallholder farmers, along with subsidies for drought-resistant crops, have helped rural communities sustain themselves. Additionally, Botswana is exploring renewable energy and technology as future growth sectors. While these initiatives are still developing, they show the country's commitment to preparing for a post-diamond economy. Good governance is like the backbone of a nation's development. It holds everything together. Botswana's commitment to clean governance is one of the main reasons it has risen above many of its African counterparts. Unlike countries where corruption has drained resources and undermined trust in public institutions, Botswana has cultivated a culture of accountability and transparency. This didn't happen by accident. Shortly after independence, Botswana established the Directorate on Corruption and Economic Crime, an institution tasked with investigating corruption at all levels of society. The DCEC has real power, unlike some anti-corruption agencies that exist only in name. Its ability to prosecute high-ranking officials sends a strong message: no one is above the law. This stands in stark contrast to nations like Nigeria, where oil wealth has often disappeared into private bank accounts, or South Sudan, where corruption has fueled ongoing conflict. Botswana's leaders understood early on that corruption isn't just an ethical issue, it's an economic one. Every pula siphoned off by corruption is a pula that could have been spent on schools, roads, or healthcare. Additionally, Botswana practices remarkable budget transparency. The government regularly publishes its spending, making it accessible to the public. This not only deters misuse of funds but also builds trust between the government and its citizens. According to Transparency International, Botswana consistently ranks as one of the least corrupt countries in Africa. Such rankings aren't just numbers, they reflect a nation where leaders prioritize public service over personal enrichment. And when trust exists, people are more willing to invest in and support their country. And governance doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's shaped by the people and traditions of a nation. Botswana's culture, deeply rooted in consultation and accountability, played a crucial role in shaping its governance style. Culture is often an overlooked factor in a nation's success, but in Botswana, it has been a quiet yet powerful force, shaping its governance and social harmony. One of the most distinctive aspects of Botswana's culture is the Kagotla system, a traditional assembly where people gather to discuss community issues. This isn't just a symbolic gesture. At the Kagotla, every individual, regardless of age or social status, has the right to speak. It's democracy at its purest form, rooted in dialogue and consensus. The government has integrated this cultural tradition into modern governance, creating a unique blend of old and new. Leaders often consult the Kagotla before making significant decisions, which fosters a sense of inclusivity and collective ownership. This approach is starkly different from the top-down authoritarian rule seen in many other parts of Africa, where citizens feel disconnected from their leaders. Moreover, Botswana's culture emphasizes modesty and community over individualism. This has created a political culture where leaders, even at the highest levels, are expected to serve rather than dominate. Siradse Khama, for example, maintained close ties with his people, often attending Kagotla meetings himself. This cultural foundation of mutual respect and consultation has played a significant role in Botswana's political stability. While other nations struggle with ethnic or tribal tensions, Botswana has largely avoided such conflicts by ensuring that everyone feels heard and represented. To truly appreciate Botswana's success, it's important to understand how it stands apart from its neighbors. Take Zimbabwe, for example. Once known as the breadbasket of Africa, Zimbabwe's economy was crippled by hyperinflation, land reforms that devastated agriculture, and rampant corruption. Botswana, on the other hand, took a cautious, steady approach to development, ensuring that wealth from diamonds was invested wisely and equitably. Then there is South Africa, the regional economic powerhouse. While South Africa has vast resources and advanced infrastructure, it also suffers from extreme inequality and political instability. Botswana's more egalitarian approach has allowed it to avoid the stark divisions that plague South Africa. By focusing on community centered governance and gradual reforms, Botswana has managed to lift more people out of poverty without the unrest that inequality often breeds. Even Namibia, which shares a similar climate and geography with Botswana, hasn't achieved the same level of success. Namibia's reliance on mining mirrors Botswana's, but it lacks the same level of clean governance and economic planning. Botswana's disciplined approach to saving diamond revenues through its sovereign wealth fund and investing in public services like education and healthcare has made it stand out. These comparisons highlight how the right policies coupled with strong leadership can make all the difference, even when starting from a similar place. Botswana's story isn't just a lesson for Africa, it's a lesson for the world. First and foremost, it underscores the importance of leadership. Siradse Khama and his successors weren't perfect, but they were committed to building a nation that worked for its people. They made tough choices, like saving diamond revenues instead of splurging them on flashy projects or personal enrichment. Leadership like this is rare but transformative. Second, Botswana teaches us the value of institutions over individuals. While charismatic leaders often capture headlines, it's the systems they leave behind that determine a nation's long-term success. Botswana's focus on building institutions like the DCEC and integrating cultural practices like the Kagotla into governance has ensured stability and continuity. Finally, Botswana's approach to resource management is a masterclass in avoiding the resource curse. By treating diamonds as a means to an end rather than the end itself, Botswana has turned a potential vulnerability into a strength. Countries like Venezuela, Iraq, and Angola, which have squandered their resource wealth, could learn a lot from Botswana's discipline and foresight. The broader lesson here is that no nation is doomed by its circumstances. Botswana had every reason to fail: poverty, geographical isolation, and a lack of infrastructure. But with vision, discipline, and a commitment to inclusivity, it defied the odds. If Botswana can do it, why can't others? As we wrap up, Botswana's story serves as a beacon of hope, not just for Africa, but for any nation grappling with challenges. It proves that geography, history, and even poverty don't have to dictate a country's destiny. With the right mix of leadership, governance, and cultural values, nations can rise above their circumstances. Botswana isn't perfect, no country is. Issues like youth unemployment and over-reliance on diamonds remain challenges, but its track record of tackling problems head-on makes it a shining example in a region often overshadowed by negative stereotypes. For anyone wondering if real change is possible, Botswana answers with a resounding yes. If you think this video has added a little bit of value in your life, then please give it a thumbs up, and you can subscribe to the channel as well because it's free. If this story of transformation inspired you, you will love my video on how Malaysia makes money. It's another fascinating tale of a nation that turned challenges into opportunities. Click here to watch, and I'll see you in the next one.